let me turn to these handouts in the book, just tell you what we're going to be using today. So does everybody have a packet in the room? I'm going to walk through quickly. We're going to cover all of these at greater length. But let me just walk you through this. The blue PowerPoint outline, the first thing, you should keep that out because that's the training outline we're going to follow today. It has room to take notes. And I'll usually tell you things that are not in the book and not in the handouts, so those in particular you can take note of. In terms of your backup, the next sheet, I just realized we don't have Greater Boston Legal Services on this. So Medical Legal Partnership is one place you can call for backup. They have people who really know utilities, but also Greater Boston Legal Services. I need to update this sheet. We just signed a contract with them to handle utility intakes. So for individual clients, you'd be better off going to one of those more frontline offices. Next document is a bill from NSTAR. So when I say find that, e-bills, no, e-doc, bill direct, that's what I'll be asking you to look for. There's a lilac colored sheet, a case scenario. We will read this twice. The first time through, we'll just get familiar with Ms. Robinson's problems, and then we're all going to solve it a little later on in the training. The next two sheets I really want to emphasize, the orange and yellow sheets, the checklist of key protections and eligibility. Until I did a lot of these trainings, and I now know everything I say very, very well, this was my own little cheat sheet. And so you should keep this with a magnet on your filing cabinet or a pin in your cushion because it really summarizes the key parts of the training. It is the checklist when any client walks in the door. You want to know if someone's elderly, seriously ill, whether the winter moratorium might help, or whether infant protections are applying. And these two sheets really summarize that stuff very well. Next is a dark blue sheet. There are ways your clients can get on the discount rates retroactively, which would be a credit on their bill, just as if the company had made a mistake on the bill and they had to correct it, but this is more so you're eligible for the discount. The pink sheet's a list of resources. It is Boston area specific, so today this one is relevant. Sometimes it's not because I'm in another part of the state. I'll talk a little bit maybe, but if not, this is just a sheet on the rights of utility customers, the orange one. Green sheet's a training evaluation. If you don't like the training, please don't fill it out, but if you do like the training, please do fill out the evaluation form. That was a laugh line, but no one got it. The white one, sometimes, this is an area where I like that the companies generally do not follow the rules. So companies don't insist on you proving that you're actually representing the customer much of the time, but they certainly have the right to. In fact, there's all new privacy laws that just came into effect, so the companies might get stricter. Filling out this white sheet should be sufficient to overcome any barrier you face if the company says, well, I can't talk to you, you're not the customer. So that's why we gave you this sample. It's a kind of canary colored sheet. It's very important to know whether your clients are on the discount rates because it can save them hundreds of dollars. So that's that sheet. And last is a little sheet on telephone. I know I covered that quickly. I'm going to go back over during the training and cover those in depth. I just want you to be familiar with it. So when I say find the following sheet, you can find it. As for the book, Utilities Advocacy for Low-Income Households in Massachusetts, second edition. The first 50 or so pages are meant to put you to sleep at night. You know what I mean is that's the stuff you could read it, but more so I think the great value is all of the appendices starting on page 63. All of the regulations you need are in the book. All of the forms you will need are in the book and some other miscellaneous information you may need. And there's a very good table of contents at the front of the book so you can find it's on Roman 8. There's a list of all those appendices. So when you need to find a sample serious illness letter or a sample financial hardship form or the department's regulations or the poverty guidelines, all of that's right in the book in front of you. Okay, so let me ask you a few questions. How many of you work with clients on utility problems? Most everybody. How many of you have ever called a utility company on behalf of one of your clients? Most of you, good. How many of you have ever called the Department of Public Utilities Consumer Division? 1, 2, it's 3. Some of you, good. Let's start working with the training outline. Most of what I'm going to say today has to do with electric and gas companies. I won't say a lot about water or telephone. I will say a little bit about them. And to the extent I talk about oil or propane, delivered fuels, it's only when I'm talking about payment sources. The reason I'm here talking about electric and gas companies today is they're regulated. People in Massachusetts have almost remarkable rights relative to their electric and gas company. Oil is a little more like tomatoes. If you have enough money to go to the store to buy tomatoes, you get them. If you don't have money, you don't get them. There's not a lot of rights to buy food. There's two kinds of utility companies in Massachusetts. How many of you are working at all outside the city of Boston? Anybody working towards the Hull-Hingham area? Where are you working outside of Boston?
Cambridge.
Okay, so Cambridge doesn't matter. So you only need to know about the investor-owned utilities, or IOUs, NSTAR, National Grid. They are regulated. The munis have slightly different rules. Generally, everything I say applies. So if you were to have a client who for some reason was moving to Hull or Hingham, the rules are slightly different. So does anybody ever have that situation? You're helping people move to some other town? Okay, yes? Let me briefly say then a few things about the munis. I will talk a lot about low-income discounts. The municipal light departments don't have to offer low-income discounts, and they also can charge a deposit. So you may think you've solved your client's problem, and they try to move to a muni, and the muni's going to say, well, you have to give us $150 or $300 to get your service on, even though you don't owe them money. So those are the only two differences. Everything else I say applies equally to the municipally owned light plants and the IOUs. So I'm on, just so you know, I'm on the very first slide. The entity that regulates the electric and gas companies is the Department of Public Utilities. I may call it the DPU. I may call it the department. And the piece of the department that does that is the Consumer Division. Their phone number is there. For those who might have not called in a while, there's a new consumer line because the Department of Public Utilities split and part of it became the Department of Telecommunications and Cable. So now there's a separate entity that regulates on the phone side. So that's the current phone number. I list the name of the director there, Liz Salucci. Liz Salucci really is very sympathetic on low-income issues, so you should know that the director of the division is someone who welcomes hearing about problems that our clients are experiencing with utility companies, particularly if it's a pattern of problems, and I will talk about some of the patterns of problems we see. And like any other organization you deal with, so if I was dealing with Project Hope and I was unhappy with Nancy's way she was dealing with me, which wouldn't happen, I would go to Sister Margaret, right? Think of the DPU the same way. If for some reason you think that frontline customer service rep at the DPU doesn't know the rules, isn't doing the right thing, you should feel free to go to the director. Although generally I will say the people at the Consumer Division are pretty good. So let's go to the slide, obtaining service. What's the most common problem your clients face when you're trying to get them service? What?
They don't have money.
Well, they don't have money, but old bills. How many have seen that problem? It's the most common problem. I've been doing this for years, year in and year out. It is the most common problem. I'm not going to explain how to solve that now. I just want you to know that's one problem. We will talk a lot about how to address that. But another one where I can give you some useful information is identification issues. So how many of you have had the utility company ask your client for a social security number to get service? Yes? Okay. Do you need to have a social security number to get service? Anybody know? No. So let me say this, particularly here where we sit in Dudley, it's important to know your legal status in the United States, whether or not you have a social security number, completely irrelevant to getting utility service in Massachusetts. So I'll say it a second time because the companies will ask for it. Your legal status in the United States or whether or not you have a social security number is completely irrelevant to whether you can get utility service. If you ever have a problem, I actually got a letter from the Consumer Division so stating. So why are the companies asking for social security numbers? So are they in the immigration enforcement business? Why are they asking for it? Anybody know? No?
Billing purposes?
What?
For billing purposes?
Yes, and what related to billing?
I guess to see if you're in the system as having past due bills.
Exactly. They want to look into the system to see if you owe them money for past due bills. So I have an uncommon last name. When I ask for service, they're not going to find another Charlie Herrick in that town who owes them money. If your name was Jose Rodriguez or John Smith, they might find somebody who owes them money in that name, and they want to know, are you that person or you just happen to have the same name? So the reason to ask for Social Security number is it's easy. But you don't have to have one. If you have one, you don't have to produce one. So let's say your name was John Smith and they say, you know, you owe us money from when you lived at Blue Hill Ave, and you can prove you never lived at Blue Hill Ave, you can prove you lived somewhere else. You wouldn't have to produce your Social Security number. You may have to go through some other route to prove that you don't owe them money.